Welcome back to another episode of Bum with a Wrench. I'm your host Daniel, as always. This is it. This is all the parts back out. Well, all the ones I could find. I thought I could just jump right back into this. In fact, this is, I started filming this Thursday of last week. Not that those days really mean much, but now it's the following Monday. And I decided to redo the opening because I noticed I was getting into like a half hour and I hadn't even done anything yet. So I'm trying to cut the time down on what this actually takes, because I had to dig all the stuff out of the car, set everything all back up, try and remember where I was at, right? Because remember, it's been 2 months. So yeah, really haven't gotten anything done with the car. Setting up a plan, that's where I'm kind of at right now. I know I'm 3 days into that, but I'm at the part where, it requires a lot of thinking. So, got all the parts that I could find laid out. Kind of was going over where I was at coming out of the other shop. I was in a big hurry trying to get as much done on the car as I possibly could. And that left me in a spot where I kind of went too fast. There's a few things missing, so I need to slow it down, dial it back, make a plan. Let me bring you over and I'll kind of show you what I got going. And then I'll tell you what my plan is here. My plan is basically, I ain't got one. So, there you go. So compressor, I forgot to run a circuit down this harness. So I need to take this back off, modify that harness, add a circuit to that. I need to take all of this back off so that I can get in there, which I'll probably take the air box and stuff back out because of the intake manifold. It's just sitting on there. That I need to pick that back off to redo that piece of the harness. I still have this side of the harness to do, and I have the O2s that are coming up that I need to link into the harness there. I have the lighting harness that I need to modify, but I also have AC up here. I have the vintage air circuits coming over from there going into the low pressure switch up here in the front. I also have electric fans that I need to integrate into this harness as well as the mass airflow sensor into that harness. So, have a few modifications to this harness that I need to make. But before I do any of that, I need to put a game plan together before I do more stuff like this for getting this circuit, which means I got to open that harness back up. Now, honestly, it's not that big of a deal. I can open that harness back up and fix that fairly easy. So let me go show you what I'm doing. Watching YouTube and making a plan. So let me set you down here. Okay. So, I'm a real visual person. I gotta write everything down. That's just the way it goes. Otherwise, I start forgetting stuff. And I'm like, what was I gonna do again? What was I gonna do? So, real basic harness. Got the lighting up here, fans, AC, and then basically everything in black is what I have. Everything in red is what I need all the way to the back of the car here, fuel pump and fuel level. Also going over the Dakota Digital stuff because I did buy the OBD2 connector for that, thinking that I would use it because, it's an OBD2 car now. It's a LS3. Don't need it. I already have the temp sensor installed, oil pressure is installed, fuel level is coming out of the tank, so that's already done. Speed I can grab out of the ECU. I looked on the harness and it has a signal wire for that. Also RPM, already has a signal wire in the harness for it. So in oil pressure, I have volts, that was the other one. Simple 12 volt constant wire. I have everything I need. I don't need to plug into the OBD2. Now maybe if you had a car that was already wired up and running and everything else, and then you wanted to go ahead and add the Dakota digital gauges, then OBD2 would probably be the easiest way, because then you wouldn't have to modify really anything. You plug in the OBD2 again, which I thought it would be a pass-through kind of jumper. It's not. It's a cap. So you plug it on and that's it. There's no jumper coming out of the other side. Now I looked online, they make Y splitters for OBD2. So you could always plug that in, and then there's a bunch of different ones. They actually have ones that are Ys with wires and stuff. Then they have hard ones that just have multiple, kind of like a T-fitting that you would put in your, plumbing or something. So there's lots of different things you could do as far as that goes. The one thing I can tell you, coming out of automotive engineering, one of the first things they would tell us if we had problems with a vehicle is to go look to see if anything was added, stuff plugged into the OBD2 port, especially stuff like those progressive snapshot things and all that kind of stuff. The computer really doesn't like being messed with, and those things go in there and they start poking and prodding around, and it could throw programming off. So if you're having problems and you've got something plugged into your OBD2 port, try unplugging it. Might resolve the issue. So, but anyways, found out I don't need it. It adds more wires to under the dash that I just don't want. It adds another level of just ugly. I'm trying to keep it very clean under the dash. So I figured out, I went through the process, don't need it, just great. That's what I want. So now I'm continuing to just map out all of the different circuits, what I need to add to the car, as well as things I need to do. Like my main concern right now is modifying the lighting harness, because I have most of the other harness made other than that one circuit for the air compressor. One of the other problems I was running into was the mass airflow sensor. Because I have it mounted on the driver's fender, it's away from that whole engine harness, right? And so I have that whole engine harness that's gonna neck down and go through the firewall. And then I've got this one sensor way out here off to the side that's gonna come around and kind of loop down under the firewall and meet into that sensor again. I'm thinking to myself, like, if I wanna remove that harness for some reason, how am I gonna get that harness out of there? So I thought about putting a Dulce connector in between the mass airflow and the main harness. You could do that and probably get away with it okay. The problem with that is that modifying these circuits, you want to try and stay away from that as much as possible. Now, I'm probably going to have to in a lot of the circuits and stuff that I'm running, because how I'm running them, where they're actually going in the car, I'm going to need to lengthen them. But putting an additional connector in line opens up a whole nother bag of worms. When you're talking about sensors like this MAF sensor, any of the other sensors in the car, generally they run, the way they work is they work on what's called VREV, right? Let's take a three wire circuit, right? A simple 3-wire circuit. There's lots of sensors that have more than 3 wires. But for just this purpose, we'll just keep it simple. So the computer itself is going to send out a voltage reference, what they call VREV. And that VREV circuit is going to be 5 volts, right? And so that's going to send that to your sensor, whatever it is. 5 volts is not a lot. Now for this purpose, let's say this is like a throttle position sensor. right? And so this is telling us, you know, where the throttle is, and the computer needs to know that in order to fire everything correctly, right? So it's sending 5 volts reference to that sensor. Now what that sensor is going to do is it's going to take that 5 volts, and depending on where your foot is in the throttle range, right? Let's say it's half throttle. And so it's going to modify that to just, let's just say 2.5 volts. I don't know what it is, but just for ease of numbers, we'll say 2.5 volts. So it's going to send the signal back at 2.5 volts. And this is coming back to the computer, right? And then this third wire here is just going to be a ground. And so now what that computer is going to do is it's going to say, okay, I sent this sensor 5 volts, but sends all the sensors 5 volts. The sensor modified it and sent 2.5 volts back. Based on that, with the values that are inputted into the computer, I can see that the throttle is at half throttle. Now it knows that one value. The thing is to keep in mind is that the ECU, it doesn't have a circuit for each sensor, right? Just add a couple circuits here. So I got MAF, MAP, TPS, right? That 5 volt VREV coming out of the computer is a centralized 5 volts. So it's sending out of that same circuit to the TPS, to the MAF, to the MAP. So here's the kicker. If you mess with that voltage, it messes with all the other voltages. So you mess with that 5 volts. And the bigger thing is if you blow that up, which is very simple to do, if you put a power probe down this connector, right, and you backfeed this, you're going to pop it. And then what you're going to see is, one, the cars are going to run horrible, but you're going to see this one pop up as a fault, this one pop as a fault, and this one pop up as a fault, right? And you're going to go, whoa, whoa, what happened? I have all these sensors that now just went away. That's because you blew up the voltage reference in the computer, right? And so a lot of people don't really know that. A lot of techs and stuff do. The problem is that you'll never get a breakdown of what's in the ECU, ECM, whatever it's called, the computer, right? They call that a oh, I forgot what it's called. Anyways, but it tells you what the inside of the computer does, what each circuit goes to, how it reacts, and all the internals. They don't give you that information because it's all proprietary. They don't want you to copy their stuff, right? Of course, there's reverse engineering and all that kind of stuff that you could go figure it out. But device transmittal, that's what I was thinking, which basically tells you what's inside and how it works. The only thing that you can do if you blow this up is to send the computer out and have it repaired. And then they'll repair the voltage reference, which I've done, did it on a Fox body Mustang. You pop it back in, you're good to go. Then all your sensors come back, everything starts working right. So back to what I was talking about with putting a Dulce connector in here, if I start putting a load on that 5 volt, meaning, you know, if I'm putting extra pins in there, the amount of electricity that can travel from one point to another with that interruption is going to decrease that 5 volts, which could skew this. So if I put a connector in there and it's sending 5 volts out, but I'm only getting 4.9, which is acceptable, by the way, at the sensor, that might change this 2.5 to a 2.4 or 2.3, right? And then where I'm at in the throttle is not correct going back to the computer, and so it makes tunability hard. It makes a lot of things harder. So what I'm trying to get at is think about things before you modify them, and be cautious about how you go about modifying something. So basically what I'm going to do with the MAF sensor is I'm just going to tie it in, because I was thinking over the weekend, look, if I've got to pull this harness out, it's not that much harder for me to just pull this circuit out of the fender well. Now what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to integrate it into the lighting harness. Because if I go ahead and put a a sheath over top of that with the MAF sensor, I'm going to have to take all this out as well. I don't want to do that. So if I take the engine harness out, all I have to do is just fish this one circuit out from the fender. So thinking about stuff like that, putting a plan together in your head about how you're going to tackle something, and then more importantly, how you're going to work on it in the future, because that is really the most important part. Because right now, as we're putting the car together, everything's just clicking and going together and no problems until the day you go to turn that key, right? You turn that key, and then all of a sudden I've got a MAF fault, or I've got a map fault, or whatever it is. Now you got to start doing diagnostics to figure out what you did, where is it at, what went wrong, right? Now when we get into modifying the circuits for the computer, I'll go into that a little bit more, because I'm going to be modifying so many. You want to be careful, obviously, about where you're modifying it. So you don't want to put all of your cuts in the same spot, right? You're opening that harness up, and then you're soldering. Always solder. Never use butt connectors. Never use those crimp connectors. Never use, the crimp and automatic solder. No. I'll show you how to fix. And again, because of how sensitive these circuits are, you want to be very cautious about how you do it. And then also, you're cutting. What I like to do is I like to take, all of my circuits that are going through, and then instead of cutting them on a straight line, because now all these openings are in line with each other, I like to cut them on a diagonal, so that this one is not in line with this one, is not in line with this one, is not in line with that one. You see what I'm saying? That way it spreads out all those openings, because those openings are a vulnerable spot in your modification or repair, whatever it is. So be careful of that. And then when we get into the soldering, I've showed you guys before, but I'll show you again how I like to do that. But for now, this is where I'm at. This is what's going on this week. I am going to continue to lay out my plan for this. Let's go back up to the car, and I'll show you a little bit more about the next steps as far as the car goes. So in the car, one of the main things that I need to work on right now is the battery, right? So I have this AC, that low pressure, more importantly, that hard line right there for the high pressure. I have to modify that, because right in this area, that's right where the battery tray goes. This is sticking up too much. This is sticking up too much. I have to modify and change both of those lines to be able to get that battery in. So the battery right now is probably the most important thing on the list. Getting that buttoned up, getting that installed. One, I need to start, as I get closer and closer and closer to turning that key. It's not just turning the key all the way to the crank and fire. It's key it on. See if you let the smoke out of anything. You definitely don't want to ever let the smoke out. Once I see there's no smoke coming out of anything, and I go through and I check and everything looks good, then you can go to key on. Not just ACC, you can go to key on at that point. Now you're listening for the fuel pump, you're looking at fuel pressures, you're looking to see if anything's leaking. Again, are you letting the smoke out? Important. At that point, we can start doing things like plug into the computer and see what the computer's telling us. Maybe it's like, hey, I don't know what the heck I'm in, this is crazy. Or maybe it's like, hey, dude, I'm ready to go. What are we doing? Turn the key. So, but we'll see that out. Slow steps going forward. But I can't get to any of that until there's a battery in the car. So I need to get the battery in the car, get the negative system wired up. Right now there's a couple negative straps in there, but I don't think I have a negative strap from the firewall to the motor, which is important. And then obviously the battery's going to go straight to the engine. on the negative side and on the positive side. The positive side is going to go straight to the starter, and then from the starter it'll go to the wiring harness that'll supply all the voltage to the car. I need to get all that figured out. Most important right now. So as I continue to figure out what I'm going to do, how I'm going to modify, and putting my little map together in there, as rudimentary as it looked, it still helps you to kind of keep everything in line. Okay, I need to do this. That way when I go to modify this harness, I'm not cutting it open 3 times because there's a circuit I forgot or something I forgot to do. I can look at it all, I can see what I need to do, and then go ahead and modify it. But I need to get that battery in the car. So getting all this taken off, all these covers taken off, I'll probably end up dropping the front bumper, taking the grill out of the car because I need to get to the front where that AC is. Get the AC out, put the battery tray in place, and then run the AC lines. I'm pretty sure the AC lines can go under the tray, but I'm not sure. So modifying them before I put this in is just not smart. I need to put this in and then go ahead and modify them. Make sure everything works, make sure everything fits, and then I can go ahead and pull vacuum on the AC again, make sure the AC looks good and is under vacuum. You always want to keep it under vacuum. Keeps moisture out of the lines, keeps things from rotting. We all know what aluminum looks like when it sits out in moisture. It starts to grow. That's all what this system is. So keep it under vacuum. Keep that moisture level down and out of there. Anyways, just wanted to make a quick video for you guys, let you know kind of where I'm at with the car. I am happy to start working on this thing again. I did pull the file on the car. I did it this morning, took a look. We bought this car 6/24 of 2001. So basically, it just turned 3 years old in the shop. 6/24 of 2001 is when we bought this car. So 3 years, that's a long time to be sitting around not doing anything, especially for a car this pretty. So we need to get this thing back on the road. That's going to happen very soon, but we need to go slow, work things out very methodically, and make sure the car's put together right. All right, guys, as always, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your neighbor's dog. And as always, guys, until next time.